All right, let's dive in. Forget about magnifying glasses and dusty fingerprints. Today, we're stepping into the digital crime scene, where clues aren't things you can touch, but data scattered across a global network of servers. This is the new frontier for law enforcement, cloud forensics.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Your photos, your private messages, your work documents, they don't really live on your phone or your laptop anymore, do they? They're just out there, in the cloud, everywhere and nowhere all at once. So what happens when that personal space of yours becomes a crime scene? How on earth do investigators follow a trail that isn't even there?
And that's really our starting point. We have to start thinking about the cloud differently. It's not just some big, invisible storage locker in the sky. It's a brand new, incredibly complex type of crime scene.
You know, for decades, digital forensics was, well, maybe not easy, but at least conceptually straightforward. An investigator could physically seize a device, a computer tower, a phone, a thumb drive. They'd make a perfect bit-for-bit copy and then analyze it in a controlled lab. The evidence was contained.
But the cloud? The cloud just blows that all up. The evidence isn't in one neat little box anymore. A single file could be shattered into a dozen pieces and stored on servers in different countries, all managed by a virtual system. You can't just walk over and put that in an evidence bag.
And this new reality means that the old playbook, the traditional rules of digital investigation that have worked for years, they just don't apply anymore.
For a long time, the process was standardized around these 4 key phases. You identify potential evidence, you collect it, you examine it, and finally, you present your findings in court. Simple, linear, and super effective, as long as you were dealing with physical devices. But the cloud shatters this whole model. Let's just take step 1, identification. How do you identify where a piece of data is when a suspect's files might be stored on servers in Virginia, Ireland, and Singapore all at the same time?
And then you get to collection. You can't just walk into a Google or Amazon data center with a warrant and say, "I'll take that server, please." That single server holds the data for thousands of other innocent people. You don't own it, you don't control it, and seizing it is pretty much impossible.
And hey, even if you could magically get the data, your old tools would probably just choke on it. Traditional forensic software was built to analyze a single hard drive, a finite, predictable file system. They were never, ever designed to sift through the petabytes of data. We're talking millions of gigabytes that are constantly flowing through these massive virtualized cloud systems.
And here's the real kicker. The cloud's greatest strengths are what make it an investigator's biggest nightmare. All these things that make the cloud so amazing for us, the fact that it's on demand, that resources are pooled together, that it can scale up and down instantly, those are the very features that make it so incredibly difficult to investigate. And the complexity? Oh, it doesn't stop there. See, not all clouds are created equal. An investigator's ability to get any evidence at all depends entirely on which of these 3 service models a suspect was using. From infrastructure as a service, which is kind of like renting raw computing power, all the way to software as a service, which is what you use for something like Dropbox or Gmail.
Okay, so this table right here, this explains the whole problem perfectly. Just look at the difference. In an IaaS model, the customer, and by extension a suspect, has a ton of control, right down to the operating system. An investigator can potentially get a lot of useful data there. But now look at a SaaS model, like that email service. The customer can only touch the application itself. Everything underneath, the operating system, the servers, the network logs, is completely locked down by the provider. The amount of potential evidence an investigator can get their hands on just shrinks dramatically.
So the old model is broken. The environment itself is hostile to investigation. What's the answer? Well, you need a completely new playbook. You need cloud forensics.
And this isn't just about a new set of tools, it's a whole new discipline. It's this hybrid science that has to deal with not just technology, but international law, different corporate policies, and the incredibly complex relationships between cloud providers and their millions of customers.
So to try and tackle this, researchers are proposing new models, like this one. What you're seeing here is a much more dynamic approach. Data is being pulled from everywhere, the cloud provider, the user's phone and laptop, even other connected cloud services, and it's all being funneled into one central system for processing.
So here's the key idea, and it's a big one. Instead of every single investigator in every precinct trying to figure out how to get data from Amazon or Microsoft, you have a specialized, central service that does it for them. They handle the messy business of acquisition, they clean up all the junk data, and they hand a neat, ready-to-analyze package to the detectives on the ground.
Now, a new model like that obviously requires a whole new toolkit, both in terms of methods and technology.
First up is a concept called forensic triage.
Look, you just can't analyze everything. There's way too much data. Triage is all about making quick, smart decisions to find the most important data first. It's kind of like what paramedics do at an accident scene. Find and treat the most critical injuries first.
And then you have this idea, which is a total game changer. Forensics as a Service, or FAS. This is where the cloud providers themselves actually build tools for investigators. So instead of fighting against the system, FAS lets investigators use the cloud's own immense power to conduct their searches remotely and way more efficiently.
And efficiency is absolutely everything. If you need any proof, just look at this number. In one academic test, it took over 5 hours just to acquire and verify a measly 30 gigabytes of data from Amazon's cloud. That was using a fast method. Now imagine you need to pull down a terabyte of data. The scale of the challenge is just staggering.
So yeah, these new tools and models are definitely promising, but we have to be realistic. This field is still really new, and there are some massive unsolved challenges that everyone is still grappling with. And you know what? The biggest hurdles aren't even the technical ones. They're legal and logistical. What do you do when the data you need is in a country with completely different privacy laws? What if a service provider just doesn't want to cooperate? How do you collect evidence that, by design, might be automatically deleted by the system in just a few minutes? This quote from the research paper really just hits the nail on the head. In the old world, you could freeze a hard drive in time, making a perfect copy. But cloud data is alive. It's constantly changing, shifting, and sometimes it just disappears forever. Simply preserving the evidence is one of the hardest things they have to do.
So we're left with this huge fundamental challenge, right? Technology is moving forward at this incredible breakneck pace, completely changing how and where our digital lives play out. And the question we really have to ask ourselves is, can the systems we all rely on for justice possibly keep up?